Wilkommen, Bienvenue and Salve to another entirely senseless and unavailing episode of Duncombe House Diaries. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the English countryside. To those of you who are fully signed up members of the Duncombe House family, it is fabulous to have you back with us. We have an extra special episode for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Not only are we going to be finally revealing our long-anticipated exterior paint colour, but you will also be the very first people to see the photos and videos from our secret wedding. We are going to be taking you all the way to Manchester to show you the never-before-seen secrets of the RadRestore Radiator workshop, before whisking you off to the eternal city of Rome for a little bit of pasta and a fountain load of history, culture and religion. We will be showing you a genuine piece of treasure which can reveal all manner of secrets about Duncombe House and its past, and, as always, expect the usual Duncombe House nonsense and updates on the menagerie and our renovations. As always, please do ensure that you nourish us with your likes, shares, and most importantly, comments. We truly adore hearing from every single one of you with your ideas, salutations, and what you would like to see more of. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. In last month's instalment, I promised you some excruciating detail surrounding the restoration of our gorgeous antique cast iron radiators, and rest assured, my friends, that you will not be left disappointed. As I mentioned previously, before its catastrophic demise, the heating system at Duncombe House was comprised of the original cast iron radiators, which were installed by W. Ford & Sons in 1937, and a secondary modern ring of radiators to give them a little boost. As such, this is the exact system which we will be reinstating. How do I know all this? Well, it's because we have all the original paperwork, including the quotes for the provision and installation of the 1930s heating system. In order to ensure that A, these original radiators are safe, effective and sympathetically restored, and B, that they look absolutely fan-dabby-dozy, we have entrusted them to the experts at RadRestore. Based just outside of Manchester, RadRestore have been expertly restoring antique cast iron radiators for decades, and the passion that Peter, Hannah and their entire team of cast iron connoisseurs have for their craft is overwhelming. Peter at RadRestore informed me that the earliest form of radiator as we know them today was invented in 1863, but that they really got going around 1872 when a chap called Nelson H. Bundy invented the Bundy loop, which laid the foundations for the modern radiators which we know and love today. Our radiators, which we have never actually witnessed being hot, are a combination of 2 and 3 column beastons, which, as I've just mentioned, were installed at the house in 1937. There was naturally no question at all that these radiators would be heating our home for at least another 100 years, but in order for them to do this, they required the full RadRestore spa treatment. All that was left to do was to actually get them there. Weighing up to 100 kilograms each, this was no small undertaking. It took King Julian, Rob, Quincy and I the best part of an entire day to wrestle these iron monsters down the stairs, out of the house and onto the trailer, so that Jazzy and I could wiggle our way up north to deliver them. It's worth noting that RadRestore can absolutely assist with the expert collection and delivery of radiators, but I will use any excuse I can to use the trailer. As always, we thanked our lucky stars that Rob was there to oversee the entire operation. Once I had secured all the radiators down, I offered a short prayer to the gods of haulage, and off we trotted up north to what can only be described as RadRestore's Willy Wonka-esque radiator factory. After offloading our booty, Peter and Hannah showed us exactly what goes on behind the scenes and the immense amount of work that goes into the sympathetic restoration of antique cast iron radiators. The very first step is to get the radiator ready for reconditioning by removing all the redundant valves. Once the radiators are back to basics, the holes are capped to avoid the unnecessary ingress of detritus before they are whisked off to the state-of-the-art blasting chamber where the ancient paint is removed. Now, for some unbeknown reason, the exceptionally brave team at RadRestore kindly let this hapless fool have a go at blasting. So I donned all the required PPE and dived headlong into the fray. The blasting tank is frankly super. By blasting the radiators, opposed to dipping them in chemicals, RadRestore can not only ensure a much better end result, but also can run a far more environmentally friendly and sustainable operation. Once all the paint has been removed, quick disclaimer, I did about 1/10 of one radiator before leaving it to the professionals. The radiator is taken back out for a quick inspection, the temporary caps are removed, and she is ready for pressure testing. RadRestore charged the radiators with water for a full 24 hours at least, at a far higher pressure than they will face at home, to make absolutely sure there are no pinhole leaks or faults. Once the radiators are mechanically fit, it's time for them to receive one of many potential finishes. RadRestore can polish radiators, which not only looks like a lot of fun to do, but leaves them with an incredibly impressive shine. If, however, you're looking for some colour or a metallic finish, they have myriad options to choose from to suit any interior inclination. Now, our radiators were originally quite an aggressive gold, which at some point was then muted with a cream paint. Choosing a final finish is proving rather tricky for us, as the importance of the radiators cannot be stressed. In our opinion, radiators are far, far more than simply a tool to heat one's home. They present an incredible opportunity to add an architectural and interior design feature to a space that displays a sense of quality and permanence. Therefore, we are going to once more fall on your kindness and ask you to share your thoughts on a final radiator finish for Duncombe House. The options are frankly endless, and please do visit the RadRestore website to get inspiration beyond the following suggestions, but we have shortlisted the following. Now, this is an incredibly important decision, so please think carefully and comment below. Number 1. It's a gorgeous natural iron. Number 2. It's back to bling with some golden honey glow. Number 3, keep it muted with some dreamy, creamy chalk. Number 4, it's on theme, it's evergreen. And finally, number 5, it's fun, it's cheeky, it's just pink. Now, if you're sat at home thinking, goodness gracious, on a gondola, I would love some cast iron in my life, then remember that radiators can easily be changed. I appreciate wholeheartedly that the idea of swapping a radiator in your home might be a foreign or daunting concept, but I assure you that any plumber worth his salt, or any vaguely competent DIYer, can swap a modern panel radiator for one of these gorgeous cast iron radiators in a matter of moments. RadRestore do not only sell exquisite one-off antique radiators expertly reconditioned, but also a huge range of new cast iron radiators waiting to add some style and aplomb to your home. And you absolutely don't have to change all of your radiators. Maybe treat yourself to one for the hallway. Perhaps the drawing room or bedroom, where you can not only enjoy its deep warmth, but also its top-tier good looks. If you haven't got the message yet, we love cast iron radiators and frankly think that you should too. If you have any questions at all about adding these beauties to your home or getting old ones restored, please ask below in the comments and we will make sure that the experts at RadRestore get back to you personally. Now don't forget, make sure you let us know downstairs in the comments which finish we should go for. And remember, life is simply too short to have naff radiators. So head on over to the RadRestore website and get some cast iron in your life. There are certain moments in life, and we have been spoiled with them recently, where one steps back for a moment and asks oneself, how the ding-dang devil did we get ourselves here? In an attempt to make you all feel even more immersed in the Duncombe House project, we have decided to open the Duncombe House Emporium, full of things you never knew you did not need. When the idea of opening our very own maison de couture was first floated, I'll be honest with you, I was a touch skeptical. However, now that so many of you have made purchases, I have had to eat my hat. Not this hat, obviously. This one belongs to Quincy. Initially, we started out by trying to design one simple t-shirt for you all, but have ended up getting entirely carried away and designing what has turned out to be a rather extensive collection of haute couture, a la Duncombe House. In the interests of keeping things as authentic as possible, we decided to rope in our good friends Steve, Amelia, Quincy, Magenta, Katie, Dean, Borja, Rob, and Mickey for a Paris Fashion Week worthy photo shoot. We felt that if we were going to ask all you lovely DHs to support us, it was very important that we modelled these garments ourselves. Not me, of course. That would be a step too far. Now, I am reliably informed that one can purchase from our little online boutique from anywhere in the world. So, although Duncombe House may be in the middle of the English countryside, one can sport a Duncombe House t-shirt from San Antonio to Sydney. We have Duncombe House flavoured garments ranging from the sublime to the ridiculous. We have a feline-friendly range which is perfect for those of you who might be fans of the 24-carat savages, which are Dean and Borja. We have some wonderful options for all of you green-fingered gardening gurus who might appreciate the correct horticultural nomenclature. And for all those budding questionable DIYers out there, we have some essential pieces of personal protective equipment. For those of you hailing from warmer climes, we can keep the sun off of your heads. Then, for those of you from more frigid parts of the world, we can keep you warm and toasty. Most importantly, of course, Her Royal Highness Princess Quincy of Duncombe House has her own entire range, which is, frankly, preposterous. There really is a lot on offer, from the terribly chic to the delightfully esoteric and nonsensical. I must say that the hydrangea macrophylla t-shirt is my personal favourite. All jokes aside, as you will know by now, we absolutely adore sharing our peculiar little lives and the renovation of Duncombe House with you all. But as we do all of our own filming and editing, the time cost to us is quite staggering. And sadly, as we all know, time is money. And the amount of money it requires to sympathetically and comprehensively renovate a property as historically important as Duncombe House is, frankly, mind-boggling. For all of you incredible people who have sent us super thanks over the last few months, rest assured you are now eternalized in the bricks and mortar of Duncombe House. And it is in part because of your humbling kindness that we decided to create something to offer back to our supporters. By making a purchase at our jolly little store, you are not only securing yourself some fantastic clothing, but you are securing yourself membership to the Duncombe House Club and will be genuinely supporting us in our ongoing odyssey of renovation, restoration, rejuvenation and reinvigoration of a truly important historical architectural asset. All of these products are made from sustainably sourced organic cotton in factories using entirely renewable energy, making them as environmentally friendly as humanly possible. We do very much hope that you love wearing a little bit of us as much as we do. And as always, remember that we are on this journey together, so any ideas or feedback from you would be truly appreciated. You will find a link to our shop in the description of this video, and if I can work out how, possibly on your screens now. We would love to hear what you think. Be kind, and remember, it's all just a little bit of fun. Now, as you will know by now, every single Tuesday on our Treasure Tuesday series, we select another wonder from the Duncombe House collection to share with you all. Everything from 40-year-old uneaten chocolates to tins of gunpowder. But now and again, we treat you to a genuine Grade A piece of treasure. This map was very kindly lent to us by the family of the previous owners of the Callich Abbey estate and is a genuine portal into the past. It is titled A Plan of the Callich Estate in the counties of Stafford and Derby and was commissioned in 1840 by the previous owner of the Callich Abbey estate, Court Granville, Esquire. Now, to put things into perspective, this map was drafted only 3 years after Queen Victoria ascended the throne, and in the same year that she got married to Albert. It is entirely hand-drafted and coloured, and shows some incredible details about Duncombe House and the wider Dove Valley. The map is scaled in chains, which is an archaic unit of measurement equal to approximately 20 metres. It shows not only the former, now forgotten Callich Abbey Manor, but the very much not forgotten Duncombe House. Not only can we see the extent of the Granvilles' land ownership in 1840, but handily, back then, maps also noted the names of your neighbours, presumably in case you wish to either invite them over for tea or challenge them to a duel. Now, the depiction of Duncombe House shows us that although much has changed, there is much that remains the same. We can see the formal gardens to the west of the property sectioned into 4 distinct beds, as it is today, and can also see 2 outbuildings. Although these appear initially to be in vaguely the same location as the current outbuildings, they are quite clearly of a larger scale and oriented slightly differently. Interestingly, Butler's Lodge does not appear on this map, so we must presume that it was constructed later on in the 19th century, probably when Duncombe House itself was extended to its current size and the outbuildings modified. Even more peculiar to consider is that in 1840 the Duncombe family had absolutely nothing to do with this place, so Duncombe House would have certainly been known by a different name. One can't help but wonder what Court Granville Esquire would have made of this YouTube chapter. Presumably, the entirely abstract concept of his map being on a YouTube video watched by people all around the world would likely have been incomprehensible to him. However, I'd very much like your take on this. Do you think he would be pleased or aghast at Duncombe House Diaries? I'm genuinely curious to know your thoughts because I'm struggling to decide myself. At the end of the day, we are talking about a real person. A person who decided to have this map made and would have held it in their own hands some 200 years ago, and undoubtedly would have stood and looked at Duncombe House as we do today with his own dreams and ideas of how it should sit in the world. Now, I appreciate entirely that it's a touch abstract, left of field and possibly odd thing to think about, but I do like playing these thought experiments, and I would very much like it if you played this one with me. Put yourself in the shoes of Court Granville Esquire. You've just been told about Duncombe House Diaries. What the devil do you make of it? Well, seeing as we don't have that much on at the moment, we also decided this month that it would be a terribly good idea to pop to the seaside and have a secret wedding. Now, you'll have to forgive me, the footage in this chapter is a touch all over the place, but that's because I consciously did not take my camera to my own wedding. Luckily, however, we have a very snap-happy family, not to mention the fantastic Eloise and Mitch taking some very good professional photographs for us. With everything else going on in our lives, we decided to opt for, by English standards at least, a very small DIY wedding, with only our immediate families in attendance. I shan't go into too much detail, as some things in life simply don't need to be shared with the internet, but know that we had the most perfect of weekends. In the interest of keeping costs down, and because we're insufferable perfectionist control freaks, we did almost everything ourselves. This involved hiring a giant van and filling it with everything we needed before driving it 4 hours across the country to the seaside. We were extremely fortunate to be given permission to get married literally on the mere at Thorpe Ness, which is perched on the east coast of England in the county of Suffolk, just up the coast from the town of Aldborough. Now, for those of you not yet acquainted with Thorpe Ness, it is, to put it simply, heaven on God's green earth. At the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th centuries, Thorpe Ness was acquired almost entirely by the Ogilvy family, who were the visionaries behind the entire Thorpe Ness project. Thorpe Ness was essentially a purpose-built elite private fantasy holiday resort. Think an Edwardian Disneyland without the riffraff. It was at this time that the magical and totally unique mere was hand-dug for the enjoyment of children and adults alike. My family has been going there on holiday every summer for generations, and it's difficult for me to explain just how precious this place is to us. Not only is it the final resting place of my mother, but also my grandfather, and most importantly, our trusty childhood border terrier, Bramble. We started the weekend as tradition dictates, with a bracing swim in the North Sea, followed by a wonderful breakfast prepared on the beach by my fabulous uncles and aunties. Once that was all squared away, it was back to the Hermitage to prepare. As I mentioned before, our wedding was a true do-it-yourself affair. So after setting the table for our guests and preparing all the food with the help of our wonderful families, there was just enough time for a cheeky tipple before the abject chaos ensued. Now, when I say we got married on the mere, I literally mean we got married on the mere. Our armada of boats, captained and crewed by family members and armed not with bronze cannons but with bottles of Cremant, sailed out to Peggotty's Island, where my beautiful and perfect sister acted as our celebrant. At one point, the congregation did somewhat resemble the Battle of Trafalgar, but in the nick of time, they closed ranks and Jazzy was able to sail through clear. And my goodness, did she look beautiful. I'm afraid I won't be sharing the actual ceremony with you all because that is something super sacred and special. But rest assured, it was brilliant. Everyone then returned to the house to enjoy some fabulous jazz whilst indulging in one or two more tipples. Preparing all the food ourselves meant that we could set the overarching culinary theme, which was simply our favourite foods. We managed to create quite the veritable feast of fruits de mer made up of locally caught seafood, delectable charcuteries with the all-important burrata centre, and an unceasing supply of chip shop chips and locally baked bread. All in all, a most excellent weekend was had, and most importantly, Jazzy was over the moon and Granny had a ball. When you're undertaking a project as monstrous as the renovation of Duncombe House, there can be long periods where nothing seems to happen. And then, suddenly, without warning, bosh! You complete a task, can revel in its glory, and benefit from a wonderful morale boost. Our campaign to complete the front door at Duncombe House has been going on now since last October. A job which initially we assumed would be completed in just a few weeks has taken just over 6 months. Story of our lives. For all you patient pickles who have been waiting for us to reveal the final exterior paint colour we will be using here at Duncombe House, you are in luck. Because today, ladies and gentlemen, I am terribly excited to finally reveal our exterior Duncombe House Pantone. Before I do, however, let me regale you with the full and unabridged story of our magnificent and at times tedious front door restoration project. Now, the front door of a house is famously quite an important element, and the front door at Duncombe House has been admitting guests for at least several hundred years. And judging by this incredible clue which I found inside the lock, has had the same key, miraculously, for some 187 years. This level of history demands a certain level of respect, and as such, our restoration of the front door has been as thorough as possible. The first job back in October was to loosen the painted hinges by scraping off the painted screws and gently rocking her out of her frame to allow us to properly work on her in the dining room. As you will recall from previous episodes, what followed was the mind-numbing but entirely necessary task of removing all of the old paint, using a combination of strippers and sanding. Jazzy, Julian, and I all had hands in this mammoth task, but eventually we were left with the fantastically intact, bare wooden door. Now, of course, the most sensible course of action would have been to simply replace the door furniture, giving her new hinges, handles, and a lock. But as you will know very well by now, we refuse to let common sense get in the way of a good aesthetic. So a systematic scheme of cleaning, restoration, and preservation was undertaken to allow us to reuse not only this fabulous lock, but also the beautiful brass handles, brass escutcheon, and even the original hinges. The next job was to give her a protective coat of primer, before finally applying several coats of our exquisite Fenwick and Tilbrook exterior eggshell paint. Before she went back into the hole, we also naturally had to strip and sand all the paint from the door frame. And when I say we, I mean King Julian. In addition, and in the interests of avoiding any modern plastic trimming, we painstakingly reinstated the proper copper draft excluder, which I hope you will agree looks absolutely top-notch. This copper strip sits inside the door return and, supposedly, blocks drafts from entering around the door. Of course, a nice strip of rubber foam would have been far more efficacious, but far less aesthetically pleasing. In the interests of making sure that the door actually swung properly, we asked our good friends Brad and George to visit us once again to replace the rotten weather bar and then hang her perfectly in place. In order to finally decide on an exact green, we were fastidious in our research. Although we had lots of old tins of green paint in the house, none were exactly the same as each other, and the present colour of the door was clearly seriously faded from the original. In the end, we decided to visit some of our neighbours, dwelling in other buildings on the estate, still painted in the original estate green. And then, combining them with the paints from the house, we came up with as close of a colour match as humanly possible. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to officially reveal our Fenwick and Tilbrook custom colour creation, Duncombe House Green. Love, love, love. Now, as a general rule, we prefer not to leave Staffordshire or Derbyshire without good cause, as in our opinion there is no finer place on earth. However, there are certain circumstances in which we can be compelled to travel, and a little honeymoon is one of them. Rome, or the Eternal City as it was coined by Tibullus in the 1st century BC, is a truly awe-inspiring city with a genuinely unbelievable amount of intact history. The mark of the Roman Empire, which collapsed some 1500 years ago, can still be felt everywhere in the fabric of the city. We only popped over for 3 nights, but it was a cultural hurricane. We stayed in the terribly understated Grand Plaza Hotel, which not only must have at least 1 billion tons of marble inside, but also benefits from the most elegant and minimalist banqueting hall and myriad anterooms, where one evening we were even treated to a private piano concert. We managed to get around all the key sites whilst we were there entirely on foot, racking up over 40,000 steps on the Saturday. Romantic, I know. We naively thought that by taking a dawn trip to the Trevi Fountain, we might be able to escape the crowds, and although it was certainly more convivial early in the morning opposed to later on, there was still no shortage of people. Designed by Nicola Salve and completed by Giuseppe Panini in 1762, the Trevi is a Baroque masterpiece, and one can genuinely spend hours staring at its intricate beauty. I can also safely say now that I am the first person to wear a Duncombe House t-shirt there. I do hope I'm not the last. From the Trevi, it was off to the humbling and terrifying spectacle which is the Roman Colosseum. The Romans famously enjoyed killing both people and animals, and this infamous theatre of death was where their perverse and creative massacres took their truest theatrical forms. It is remarkable to think that the Colosseum is 1,953 years old, which frankly makes Duncombe House look like a new build. The intricate cellar system, designed purely to increase the morbid entertainment, is staggeringly complex and intact. A true piece of history. From the Colosseum, it was time to visit what is often described as one of the single most incredible buildings ever to be constructed. The Pantheon, which itself is 1900 years old, was built in its current iteration by Emperor Hadrian, off of the wall, and was intended to be a temple dedicated to not one, but all of the gods. The open ceiling is perfectly positioned to act as a sundial, positioning the sun in different parts of the building at different times of year. Sadly, I would have had an even better video than this, but a policewoman came and threatened to arrest me for setting up the camera on a tomb. Our final destination was, of course, the home of the Roman Catholic Church, and our new Pope, the most eminent and most reverend Lord Robert Francis Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, Prevost, who has taken the name Leo XIV, who, incidentally, originally hails from Chicago, Illinois. Shout out to Chicago. The Vatican has to be seen to be believed. I have never in my entire life been in a complex of buildings so rich in heritage, spirituality, and art. I genuinely think it would take an entire lifetime to digest all that this place has to offer. We went full tourist mode for this visit and don't regret it one bit, as our fabulous tour guide was able to in part contextualise the resplendent and frankly entirely overwhelming spectacle which is St. Peter's Basilica, the Vatican Museums, and the unbelievable Sistine Chapel. The Vatican is truly like no other place I have been to on Earth. The entrance is literally like an airport, and the space welcomes on average 30,000 people every single day. I do wonder if any of you have been to Rome, and in particular to the Vatican. I'd be very interested to get your opinions on this fantastic city, and most importantly, whether or not you have any recommendations for when we undoubtedly make our return. Naturally, this was a honeymoon after all, so it wasn't all culture. We carved out plenty of time to enjoy pizza, pasta, and Aperol. It's safe to say that we love Rome. Now you'll no doubt be delighted to know that other business is quite light this month. The old wedding and a trip to Rome has taken up a fair slip of our time, but the next 4 weeks are clear as a whistle, and we have myriad renovation tasks to complete. By next episode, we will have begun the flaunching and pointing of the chimneys, and we'll be showing off all the fabulous Womersley heritage building products we have decided to use. We hope to finally have the time to finish off the excruciatingly time-consuming task of restoring the bay windows, so prepare yourself to be bored stiff with all those details. We have some extremely exciting electrical and plumbing developments coming this month, with JJ working like an absolute trooper, not only to get the basic electric sorted, but to start the restoration of the servants' bell system, which is finally off the wall. Rob has, as always, been stalwart in his support this month, not just by being an exceptional merchandise model, but also by keeping on top of the paddock and orchard. On a side note, we are desperate to put some bees in the orchard, so if any of you have any advice on that front, please be forthcoming. Borja has managed to pick up a little gash on his tail. The vet is under the impression that he was bitten by something, and knowing Borja, he probably deserved it. But nonetheless, we have been maintaining a fastidious regimen of medication and, much to his displeasure, have had to put on the dreaded cone. Fortunately, we not only have JJ the cat whisperer, but also King Julian, who has been incredible in helping us to support Borja during his convalescence. Quincy has been perfect as always. I'm sure everyone thinks this about their own dog, but we genuinely cannot fault Quincy. She is calm, obedient, silent, and effortless. We have toyed over and over with the idea of breeding her, but are yet to find a worthy suitor. So if anyone out there has an equally fantastic golden retriever that you think might make a good partner for Quincy, please do get in touch. Signore e signori, thank you once again from the bottom of our hearts for joining us here on our silly little journey. Make sure to check out the Duncombe House Emporium, but most importantly, spread the word and leave us a comment. Until next time, my friends, TTFN.